Welcome to Conversate, a podcast where we engage in conversation. And today, I, Kevin Bender, sit down with special guest Marcus Huff as we talk about stories. We'll talk about stories from our own lives, our own experiences, stories of friends and family, as well as considering some of the stories that we're interested in that have entertained us in our lives, all the while realizing and recognizing that we're part of a greater story. Our stories are not just the epitome of our lives, but we're part of a greater story that has gone back thousands of generations, back to the beginning, to when God created this world. So we hope you discover more about your own story as you reflect on this episode and realize the great story that you are living in. Hope you enjoy it.
Hey, Pastor Kevin.
Hey, Marcus.
How's it going?
It's going good, man.
Good.
It's like a real nice, crisp kind of vibe outside. I busted out my fall wardrobe.
I'm confused. I got shorts and flip-flops and a fleece on, so.
Yeah, how does your body feel regulated?
This is Michigan attire. I'm ready to beach it or snow. My son's looking for snow every morning when he wakes up.
Really?
I'm like, don't push it.
I'm not ready for this year, man. I got it headed easy last year.
Yeah? I won't disagree. You did.
Yeah, I had it really easy. I know it. I'm just throwing that out now. I razzed a lot of people because everyone was like, hey, get ready, it's coming. And then I got to be like, where is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was just, for those who are joining us on the video version, I have a new haircut, only like 2 hours old. And the lady cutting my hair today was saying she was really nervous about winter because the summer was so good.
Yeah.
Like we're almost due one for a half winter last year. Mm-hmm. But, whatever. That's fun. It's good culture up here.
Yeah.
It toughens you up.
That's right. This past weekend was Rally Day, right, at St. Peter and Paul here. So we had kind of a picnic party, kickoff to everything going on this fall. I sat at a circular table eating my hot dog with a guy named Mike who's turning 91 in a couple months. Huh. Man, the dude's still up and going.
That's awesome.
He said he was having trouble finishing his hot dog. He said that was the hardest part of getting old. He's like, man, I just can't eat as much anymore. I was like, man, you're doing good, man.
Man.
That's your biggest problem. You're doing great.
That's pretty good.
91. But there's a lot of hardy folk up here.
There are.
Yeah.
So I'm told.
Yeah.
There are.
I don't see them when I look in the mirror every morning, but
one day.
One day.
One day. We'll be sitting across the table from each other, struggling to finish our hot dogs. And
that's right.
Yelling at each other to hear each other.
Well, on that Rally Day note, as part of our kickoff, as I'm reminded by your mug there, Marcus, great mug.
Tell more stories. I picked up at a conference in Vancouver a while ago. But yeah, art of storytelling, story narrative.
Yeah.
I was working in an Aboriginal context. My call prior to being here at St. Peter and Paul, I was running a mission organization in Western remote Canada, and Native culture is embraced in oral tradition and telling of stories and generational wealth of information. And actually knew people that were the last living person to speak a specific dialect. So they were recording, they had storyteller recorders that would come in and try to record tales and songs and wisdom from these different elders before they passed away, and that dialect was gone, and they preserved it. So
wow,
pretty neat to meet some of these awesome men and women and see what they had. But yeah, literally seeing story narratives and languages disappearing before your eye. So it slowed you down a bit to sit and listen and embrace what was being taught. So
yeah, and that's kind of like the way that all cultures and tribes operated for millennia.
Yeah,
this art of storytelling, passing down wisdom, knowledge, even morality. I think of when I was a kid reading Aesop's fables.
Okay.
I kind of enjoyed those, these little stories, with the animals in them, and the fox is always that clever dude, you gotta watch out for it. But they communicated, some sort of point, some sort of learning.
Yeah, a lot of those, you mentioned you're a big fan of Disney, a lot of Disney stories, and Native culture had tons of stories too of different characters in the woods, and a lot of that was just moral teaching of don't do this, or scaring people to stay out of the woods so they wouldn't get lost, get hurt, or there was no person out there looking to abduct you necessarily. It was just stay close to home. Don't get lost in the woods, please. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah,
Fun stories.
Well, right, and so this is all part of our move into the launch of The Story, this 31-week journey we're doing here at St. Peter Paul, along with St. Paul and Ontonagon, and everybody joining us from wherever you are. But we're walking through the story, which is this 31 weeks of the Bible from the beginning to the end. I think the church went through it about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right about when you were popping in here, right?
Yeah, we were just finishing up when I popped in. So, yeah.
Okay.
Right around now. I don't know, this month, next month? I think it's 5 years. So,
yeah. Okay, yeah. So, and as a part of that for the sermon this past Sunday for Rally Day, we just talked a lot about stories. What is it about stories that it does seem, you talk about working with the Aboriginals and being very much a part of their culture. Maybe there's something, I don't know, do you feel like there's something lost in our culture with stories, or do you feel like storytelling is just as kind of avid as ever in our culture? Do you notice a difference between American culture and the cultures you worked with in terms of storytelling?
I think taking it just as face value, I think you can easily say, yes, it's way different. There's a different richness. But I think we tell stories very differently. I think our attention span to how we tell stories, our stories are so much quicker or less imaginative, or they may not be just two dudes on a couch sharing about how your day is going, or about a vacation or a memory in the past or a college experience, but it may be, a video. In some ways, people's social media, Instagram feeds can be a story of a certain journey they've gone through. It looks different that way. I think I give our culture a little more credit, but right at face value, I'd say I think we're lacking some of that, just the ability to sit.
Yeah.
But even with my work there over 10 years, the respect for elders and listening to these oral stories and seeing stuff passed down was being very distracted by modern marvels or video game narratives that happen in long gameplays and stuff like that, and youth were being pulled into that more so than hearing some of the history of their own people and what was happening there. So you could see the cultural tension that they were all facing, as well as they're trying to embrace it but breathe into it. And then a lot of artists were trying to retell stories and narrative and history in these new forms and new art and stuff like that as well.
Sure, in modes that are maybe more attention grabbing for people today.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way you talk about it, because I think you're right that we have some attention deficits and difficulties in our day and age. We have so many things flying at us, so many voices flying at us. Yep. It's not like the olden days where you didn't have a gazillion voices talking at you. And so but so then in your culture, or in the group you're working with, there was almost this war being waged of different stories. Right. It's almost like what story are you giving some priority to in your life? Whether for the kids it was these more flashy narratives that had no bearing on really who they were as people, right? It's just a video game they're playing, versus the story of their own history. I mean, that, as I hear you talk about it, I mean, to me that sounds like, whoa, that's kind of a deeper story. That's a story on another level. Yeah.
I mean, many times we face different situations in some of these villages with maybe a death, or asking about imagery, or a mask or some piece of regalia in the home, and the 40 or 50-year-old son or daughter may not know, but their mom or dad was there, and they'd ask. And we'd all learn together in that moment and hear the story about something that had become static on the wall that they lost track of. Someone new came in that space, drew it out, and then all of a sudden we all learn this collective thing around this, or symbolism of a animal in their culture meant this. And for me, a hummingbird, I learned that was a symbol of new life and new beginnings. And I learned about that after a teenage suicide death had happened in a village. And I don't know, there's neat ways to learn and connect through it very differently, and stuff that we don't talk about in our culture. I didn't grow up around that. I mean, it's neat up here too with the Finnish culture. I see, from really good friends that are very entrenched in that and they embrace that culture and the heritage of who they're with.
Yeah.
I'm a glorified mutt, I think, from background and stuff like that, so I don't know what to connect with in different ways too. So I'm a troll that's hiding in the UP, so I don't know what's going on. But anyways, yeah, it's just different, and trying to embrace some of those stories and those narratives, and having that context, seeing those experiences definitely slowed me down in my conversation with different people, or who were the sages in my own life or our own kind of family, to sit and listen to stories and record some of this stuff. And we recorded some stuff from my grandma before she passed a year ago, and it was kind of neat to, after she had passed, to have a recording and listen to her tell a story, whatever it was about, in her own voice and stuff like that too. So it's neat to capture it. So if you haven't done that with loved ones, have them capture a story audibly, or video recording, or just a voice recording. It's pretty cool to hear that story not only be told on paper, but by your loved one too. So it's kind of neat.
That is.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. I feel like too, a lot of times in our lives, I mean, so we all have a story, right? We're all living our lives. We have kind of maybe plot points, in our lives that are these significant moments where maybe we grew a lot or changed a lot, or just we saw the world differently, or maybe accomplished something, but we got kind of these stages. And I even wonder how well we know our own stories. I think for a long time for myself, kind of again with these competing narratives and all these other voices and things drawing me, to listen to them, I don't think I took time to really understand my own story and kind of see the coherence in my story too. It just felt very I don't know, I'm just here now trying to figure out life, and you feel kind of chaotic. But I do feel like our lives, well, they do have a story to them.
Definitely.
And it's helpful sometimes when we have people maybe in our family or people close to us who also speak into our lives, right? Talk about the growth they've seen, or almost hearing our stories told to us from the outside. I don't know if that story that your grandmother was telling, maybe it wasn't particularly about you, but was it about your family? I mean, did it give some sort of frame?
I think it was a personal story of hers, but looking back on it, and I don't know which one it was. We captured a few of them, but one was when the first time she learned to drive, and the story of that and the wackiness of it and how she told it was just really, really neat. But yeah, to your point too, other people breathing into our lives that's seen us over years. I mean, a lot of us live in one spot for a while. You go off to college, maybe you live in a different spot, or go to trades and go over here, or have an experience. I mean, my story exists here, but before here existed downstate, and then in Minneapolis, and then back downstate, and then at a camp for 3 months here. My story with different people looks very different, and the character in that story looks very different too, which is always kind of surprising. But it is neat to be able to pull those pieces together and see that, or take the space to reflect on our own story, how God is providing in those long stages of life. But I don't know about you, we both have kids similar age, but do you get comments from older people that have kids that are older than us talking about, man, it goes fast?
Oh yeah.
I get that a lot. I'm like,
yep.
I think my child ages the same as your child ages. I don't know how this goes faster or not, but I'm starting to see the wisdom of that. I think it's a reflection back to the stories and narrative of when they first started to crawl, and all of a sudden that, and now with a 3.5-year-old that climbs in counters and can dig through our freezer, and going, I do miss those days where they kind of had their little playpen and didn't have to worry about eating our chocolate and stuff like that, But yeah.
Yeah, well, and sometimes it hits me this moment where I imagine Lily. So Lily's our almost 3-year-old daughter, but imagine her, where I am in life, and even having her own kids. And it's I can't even really fathom that thought. It kind of blows my mind when I think about it, because it's just she's so little now, she's not even close to that in her own life. But these stories, like we have our stories, and then we get to participate in our kids' stories. I mean, our roles in their stories are much different, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the part that we play, and but very neat to be able to kind of raise them up, guide them, train them, speak into their life, and I think that's some of the, when I think of formative moments in my life, it has been when, maybe my mother, my father, kind of spoke into my life. They say, hey, I remember, like, do you remember when you were this many years old? And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, not really. I don't think about it that often. Like, I remember when this happened? And I'm like, uh-huh. And, they have such a different view of us. Yeah. And can kind of guide us a bit.
Totally. I think, too, I don't know about you, but with little kids or busy schedules or just the hecticness of life, I get less consumed by I'm living a story versus I need to just get through this day and survive this day. And you lose track of this overarching journey that we're going on, or going, this is great, but I can't really enjoy it because I have to do this, this, and this, back and forth, and away it goes. And my wife and I have talked a few times about, I wonder if our 3.5-year-old Sully will remember this experience. We took a picture of him catching his first fish this summer. Will he remember this experience? And I think the segue towards Bible, I wonder if God has those same moments for us, that we're so caught up in the business. He's sitting there looking at us going, I hope he remembers this moment in this story. Hope he remembers maybe not that first fish, but the first time he received grace from me, the first time he experienced love at this new depth, the first time he got hurt or she got hurt and they came to me in prayer and I responded in love to them. I mean, those big moments that, will he remember his first fish? Maybe not, but it starts a journey that makes him want to fish more down the road and continue on in that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. That's a beautiful thought, and that starts to bring into some of this language that we're going to encounter in the story, which is that there's kind of two parallel running narratives in the Bible. You have the lower story and the upper story. And the lower story is kind of the place where all of our stories are taking place. Right. Whether it's you, me, our kids, our parents, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Characters in the Bible, us, like all through history, all of us, we have lives down here, our stories, our fish-catching experiences. But then at the same time, there's this other narrative going on, which is kind of God's plan of salvation. And in this resource, in the story, they call that the upper story. And I guess it's just a perspective change, right? Okay. I mean, it's happening kind of intermittently through these lower stories. God is showing up. With Abram, right? He gets married to, or his wife is Sarah.
Sarai,
it's Sarai. She's super old, can't have kids. And God's like, I'm going to make a nation out of you. And he's like, what? And then Sarah laughs, when she hears it. So like they kind of have this story going on down here that's like, there's no way, we're barren. This isn't going to happen. And then they just kind of do life. I mean, I think it's like a full year, maybe longer. He might be like 40 years old when he gets his promise. I can't remember. We'll have to pay attention in week 2.
We'll need a refresher.
But then the upper story is God. He's not only working this birth for Abraham and Sarah that he's promised for them, which is kind of like this God moment for them. This is like you're saying. Do they remember this first time God looking down on us? Do they remember the first time they received grace? This time when they really had fallen low, but I picked them up. Here's a moment where God comes down to these people, and it's kind of that moment. Hey, remember this. Don't forget this. Don't forget how I came through on this promise for you that seemed impossible. And so that's one blip in this upper story that's ultimately going to lead to Jesus.
And it's consistent. Unlike the lower story, which kind of has this roller coaster ride, it's ups and downs, ups and downs. I was thinking about this morning, when we had this podcast, and I need to clean up my diet. I need less sugar and move more, all these typical things. And I was like, you know what? My diet plan, schedule, habits are a lot like the Israelites. Roller coaster ride, not for a bad church analogy, but it actually fits really well. Like, I'll do really well for a while. I think I'm doing great.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, I can have like 3 months of cheat days, and then all of a sudden back downhill, and then have to redeem, and you hit bottom and get picked back up, and you start working on it again. As long as you keep giving up. It doesn't really work, but anyways, I'm a roller coaster dieter, but anyways.
Yeah. No, yeah, but I mean, I think part of what you're hitting at too is like there's this, I mean, we have a myriad of experiences in our lower stories. In my story, it might look really, really different from yours.
Yeah.
You know, from the next guy. And you see that in the Bible too. Sometimes that's why the Bible's so hard to read, because you're kind of like, okay, well now here's this guy who's like, you know, a horrible king. What's his deal?
Right.
And then you go to the next guy and he's like, well, this guy's a really good king. Okay, cool. And then the next guy is like, you know, I don't know, a prophet who's speaking lies. And you're like, what? I don't know what this is about. Or now there's, you know, a prostitute that's housing some people in a secret spy event. And you're like, there's a lot of weird stories in here, you know?
I know. And if you don't see it within the two contexts, the lower and upper, the mess of what's going on here and what God's doing up there, and his consistent, that he's in all and above all at the same time,
right?
That he's using these loved vessels of us humans, but broken and fragile. There's no way to explain it except that God's greatness moved in these situations, like taking really old people and allowing them to have babies, or people that weren't good enough, or you know, Moses didn't speak well, and so he provides somebody else, you know, and just all these leadership things that we come up with excuses for, and God says, they will know that I'm involved in this. There's no way to explain it other than this again and again. But I think you hear all those stories and all the ups and downs, the weirdness of it, the inconsistencies. Now he's using this, now it's here, kind of fragmented all over. But when you look at it from the upper perspective, going, God's constant. His favor hasn't changed. The plan's still the same.
Yep.
He's still walking with his children. Even if they go the right way, go the wrong way, do the wrong thing, ignore them, do whatever, he's still Father. He's still his relationship. He's still maintaining it and moving forward in that consistently. And how beautiful is that? But we lose track of that because we go right to the events or the details, or like, oh my gosh, Daniel's in a lion's den. What is going on now? He's saved. Woohoo!
Yeah. Well, in this story, this upper story of God's plan that can't be stopped, this continues. I mean, not just to Jesus, but beyond Jesus. I mean, to us today. It's the same story. God coming down, trying to meet us in our lives, you know, no matter what we have done, how we have failed, picking us up. And this is where, you know, we see it, the Bible as this kind of love story, I think. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can see it a few different ways. It could be a love story. It could be a story of friendship. It could be a story of fatherhood, you know, or motherhood. But yes, God plays like kind of all those roles in our lives, always seeking to draw us, to allow us, you know, to come to Him, to get us to see ourselves in His story. Too. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the details of our own stories. Right. You know, we lose that perspective of, oh wait, God's here. Yeah. He's in this too. Yeah. Like, I'm not on my own.
Right. I think that too, like, flowing from that, of the importance of getting out of our own story, being part of other people's stories, is why there's such a service aspect to our faith, or the hands, Pete, of living this out and serving in church. Isn't from like a cheap labor perspective, or just because we want someone else to do someone else's job, but there is an art to serving and engaging in someone's narrative and their story, and being part of that and carrying that on, and being able to say, hey, I knew you when you were this age. I heard stories this weekend from the 5 confirmands that confirmed their faith, going, I remember them when they were going through this. I remember this kid when he brought the box for the first time and he put a whoopee cushion in it, and today he's up there confirming his faith. You know, so it's neat to see that and have those people around to be able to speak into that, and serving alongside and engaging in life as well too. So
totally, yeah. And that's kind of the other cool piece, I think, God in this story that He's writing, you know, in our lives, but also in this large upper story that He's going to bring to completion. He doesn't say, look, this is my story and I have a vision for it, and you're like, you're not in it, you know? Yeah. He actually casts us as characters in his story. That's pretty incredible, because he's got kind of a big plan, right? I mean, his plan is to bless all nations, you know, bless all people of the earth through Jesus, you know, and he says, yeah, Kevin, I want you to come be a part of this. You know, Marcus, you listener, I don't know what your name is, Bob. He says, Bob, I want you to be a part of this story as well. Like, come, be this vessel of my love, so that people can know me. You know, God really manifests himself in us. That's what Jesus, right? Jesus, when he's teaching, you know, he says something like, I am the light of the world, right? Come to me, I'm the light. We get that. But then Jesus turns around and says, you are the light of the world. Right? You get both those phrases in the Gospels, and Jesus is saying, look, you are going to be my agents, my vessels, that the world is going to know me through you. So kind of amazing that he casts us as well in his story.
So is, it's so humbling, and we see a version of ourselves. You mentioned looking in the mirror every morning, and we see a certain vision of ourselves in the mirror in the morning. And so is God, you know, in that story. You know, we live a story based on, when we look in the mirror, do we see the cracks and the junk and the brokenness or whatever zit may be on your face at that time? And is that all you see, or are you something more than that? And I was looking at some art for our college house to put up. It was a picture of a vehicle with a cracked windshield, and basically the prayer underneath it was saying something along the lines of, may you be more than your brokenness, may you see the full potential of who you really are. And the only thing you really see in that picture of this SUV is the broken windshield. It's a fully capable vehicle, does everything else well, but you think it's junk because the windshield's broken. And so often we can fall into, or be tricked or drawn into living a story of ourselves, not of one that's redeemed from Scripture, but one of seeing our broken windshield and thinking that this is a broken vehicle because of this one little piece or this little thing. And if you feel like you're a car with a broken windshield, or you're a broken vessel, watch out. That's all the stories of all the main characters in the Bible are all those people that are broken vessels, and they know it, and God does amazing things with them. He never uses, not that I recall, anyone that has everything going just perfect.
That's right.
He takes the ones that have the brokenness, have the humility, and walks with them in ways more abundantly than those that have it all together, or perceive or lack showing their cracks and their flaws. But
for sure.
So,
well, I got one more question for you, Marcus.
Bring it.
Since I'm a big Disney movie buff guy.
Okay. This could be a short
Disney
answer.
Movie?
Disney movie? You know what? It's been a long time since I've done Disney movies.
I watched one this morning.
Did you really?
Yeah. Before I came into work, I had time to watch an entire Disney movie with my child, because they were up at, you know,
I've been working through Star Wars. Doesn't Disney own Star Wars now, though? Technically, so that was Disney Plus. That's as close as I'm getting to modern Disney. You're thinking animation-wise.
No,
it's been a long, long time. But I'm going through this. I've actually started the Star Wars trilogy, or whatever. Not a trilogy, it's more than 3. But from all the early ones, from number 1 all the way through. And I'm almost done, but it's so cool to watch that whole story narrative and walk along the whole path of that. Yeah. But I was a big Aladdin guy way back when, but it's been a long time. Because then like Pixar and Toy Story got really good for a while.
Yeah, they did. Toy Story, see, that's the one I watched this morning.
Did it?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
what's yours? What's your favorite?
Oh gosh, Disney movie?
Yeah.
It's so hard to pick a favorite, man. They're all so good.
They're not your children, so
Aladdin,
you can pick
though.
one.
When I was a kid, Aladdin that's like my go-to. I do love Aladdin.
It was good.
But he's here's a dude who's
homeless,
broken, homeless. Yeah. You know, there's a song that never made it into the original movie called "Proud of Your Boy."
You're geeking out on me now.
Dude, I am. So Alan Menken did the music for Aladdin. Amazing
so good.
Composer.
Yeah.
And he wrote the song Proud of Your Boy, and in it, Aladdin would sing about his parents who were basically like, he was a letdown to them.
Okay.
Like they weren't proud of him. He's kind of a screw up or whatever. But it's a story of redemption.
That's awesome.
You know? I mean, Aladdin is, right? He becomes, at the very end, he marries a princess. He's going to become sultan, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how it works in their culture.
Yeah.
If he would be the next sultan. But that's a rags to riches story.
It is.
Which is also our story in Christ.
Yeah.
Big quantum leap here. But, you know, like we bring, you know, to our salvation, we're rags, man. We bring nothing to the table. Jesus comes in. It's kind of like, I don't want to compare him to a genie. Jesus does not grant our wishes like a genie.
No.
But he does.
It was close. It was going good.
He walks with us like a genie. You know, they're
definitely.
friends. Yeah.
He definitely invites us to live a great story.
Yes.
Not on our own in the abyss of him. I mean, there's a lot of biblical stories of people trying to live their own great stories and falling apart. A lot of them became kings and pharaohs and queens and lived their own story for their own narrative. But we're invited to live a great story in Christ, in that where he leads as guide and main character and supporting actor in the narrative and pushes it through, but invited to live a great story. And I lose track of that often.
Yeah.
I just try to get through the story. Like it's like a homework book.
day.
Like I have to get through this book for like English class.
Sure.
And versus like you just geeking out on, you love Aladdin, you know all these details and stuff like that, and embracing the whole story of what's going on and going, you know, that was cool. Let's go deeper, and the richness that's even there, it's extra level, and this is amazing. And that's our faith life. That's Bible study. That's life communities. That's going deeper and richer in these little nuances. That's sitting with someone of a different faith walk and life experience or life with Christ, and learning from them the beauty of their faith and their own journeys in different ways and the richnesses that they see, and doing it together. So pretty awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'll keep watching my Disney movies.
You keep telling me what's going on, which ones I should watch.
You keep watching Star Wars. And we'll all keep living in this great epic cosmic battle of good and evil where God is supporting us and walking with us. If you're traveling with us in this story journey, just a reminder to read chapter 1 of the story for this coming Sunday. I'm excited to hear us dive in.
That looks great.
Cool. All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Hey, thank you, buddy.
Have a good week.
You too.